Okay, first off, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, the mercy of the grand predecessors, the transmitting masters, and everyone here today to talk about, let's see, it's the Bodhisattva Way, I guess. Okay, so just as you see in this quote here, what Buddha is saying, that basically we are what we think, or what we want to become. I mean, it's all in our mind. Okay, so whether we want to be, if we want to become a Buddha, we can become a Buddha. Of course, we have to put in the effort. Okay, so let's see. All right, Bodhisattva Way. Also, he says, no one saves us but ourselves, right? No one can and no one may. Okay, we ourselves must walk the path. So as part of, even though in our mind, we say, okay, I am, or I want to be a Buddha or a Bodhisattva, we still have to work at it. So that's walking the path, the cultivation part, right? So that's very important. That's why it's not just knowing, but doing. Okay, so there's the practice aspect of it. But of course, the mental aspect, in our mind, having that will and determination will definitely help us. I mean, it's necessary. I mean, we need that to kind of guide us, to push us to want to achieve. Okay, but then we also have to put it into practice. Okay, so getting to becoming a Buddha, there are actually different levels. Okay, so these are the lowest level of these are all basically enlightened beings. Okay, so a Buddha is an enlightened being, a fully awakened, enlightened being. A Buddha has achieved what they call Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, which is the highest, the unsurpassed supreme enlightenment. Okay, so but to get there, so the lowest level of enlightened being is what's called an arhat. An arhat is, sometimes they say it's called, sometimes spelled arhat. Okay, but arhat, that is basically they're not a Buddha, but they are enlightened. So they've achieved through their, the mental, the cultivation, mental and physical, external cultivation, internal, external, to get to that level. Actually, many of the Buddha's disciples, when they heard Buddha giving the Dharma, they just suddenly reached the level of an arhat. Okay, so but we can't look at for today. No one, as far as I know, listening to the Dharma, listening to the teachings, becomes an arhat right away. I mean, because unfortunately we're not at that level through our cultivation. So in the past, like Buddha's disciples, these cultivators, they've been cultivating for who knows how many lifetimes. Okay, so it's kind of gradually building up over each lifetime this foundation of through the cultivation to get to that, to be able to then suddenly when the Buddha is there to give the teaching, and suddenly it clicks and they become enlightened. Okay, so there's a lot of aspects to that. There's wisdom as well. Okay, so but anyway, so an arhat, these enlightened beings, they don't have to reincarnate. Okay, so basically, there are like these 4 stages of becoming an arhat, right? The first stage is what's called a Srodapana. That's called a stream enter. So they're basically, they've committed themselves to enter the stream of the Buddhahood, basically to become a Buddha eventually. All right, and so I think Buddha's mother, when she started following the Buddha, that then she became, I guess entered that first stage, become a Srodapana. So you have the different stages, and then you have the let's see, the Shrodapana, okay. Basically, I mean, there's a lot of these technical, definitions as far as what they've achieved, and we don't have to really know all those things. I mean, for our purposes, we just need to know, to cultivate. Okay, so, but basically, in terms of the definition, the Shrodapana basically has, once they become a Shrodapana, they have maximum of 7 rebirths in the world before, as a Shrodapana, okay, before they go to the next level. So the next level then is the Sakadagamin, which is a once returner. And so what that means is that once they get to that level, they basically only have to reincarnate one more time in either in the human realm or in the realm of devas, okay, in the what we call celestial heaven. And then the Anagamin is the next level. So after that, then they basically has one more rebirth in the form of in the realm of forms, okay, the pure abodes. Okay, so and then finally at the Arhat level, and then once that happens, then they reach the Arhat level. The Arhat level is basically they have no more rebirths. Okay, so they can stay there, but that's still not quite like a Buddha. Okay, so that's not really a Buddha yet, although they are enlightened. So and Arhat, there are many Arhats. So like I said, a lot of Buddha's disciples, they became Arhats right away. But for example, Jigong, living Buddha, he was an Arhat. Okay, so he was an Arhat before he became Jigong, living Buddha. All right, so or our predecessor in our temple line, in the Tongyi temple line, the Dada Janjing, or the true sage of great virtue, he was also an Arhat previously, in the previous life. Okay, so so many Arhats, they basically, you can stay there, but they still maybe want to become a Buddha. And in order to become a Buddha, they have to be reborn into this world. Okay, so that's kind of the only thing, that to become a Buddha, we have to be human first. Okay, so and our last lifetime has to be as a human. Now the Buddha himself, he was okay. So all right, so the next one is what's called a Pratyeka Buddha. Pratyeka Buddha is basically like a Buddha, but this is kind of an interesting Buddha in that they've achieved enlightenment for themselves without another Buddha's help. Okay, so usually for us to become a Buddha, just like today, we received the Tao, so there's another Buddha, that our holy teacher, who basically transmit the 3 treasures to allow us to become enlightened. Okay, so we depend on this, having another Buddha there. But the Pratyeka Buddha, they become enlightened by themselves. Okay, so and they've basically achieved pretty much like a Buddha, but because they're called a lonely or solitary Buddha, and but it's like they're I don't know what kind of where they are, whatever state they're in, but it's like they're all by themselves. Okay. But so I imagine it's kind of pretty difficult to become one of those because you don't have a Buddha. So we are very fortunate that in this life cycle, this cycle of the world, that there is a Buddha, and that the Buddha left all those teachings, the Dharma, for us to learn from. Okay, but the Pratyeka Buddha doesn't have that, didn't have that luxury, you can say. They had to just figure it all out for themselves. Okay, so now the next is a Bodhisattva. Okay, so the Bodhisattva is it's also the same thing. I mean, they're basically a Buddha, but they decide to stay, they don't achieve or they don't want to become a Buddha yet. And see, becoming a Buddha basically is you're returning back to the one, the oneness. Okay, let's say put it that way. That nirvana. Okay, that state of the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. But so basically, they want to, because they see that there are still innumerable number of sentient beings that are still not awakened, not enlightened, and so they want to try to enlighten them, awaken them. Okay, so that's really kind of the difference between a bodhisattva and a Buddha. A bodhisattva, of course, you still have to go through the stages of cultivation of a bodhisattva to achieve, that ultimate Buddhahood. Okay, now Buddha himself, we say, well, he was born in this world and then he became enlightened. You can say that he pretty much became enlightened by himself, because there were no other teachers who really taught him the true Dharma. But he actually was a bodhisattva. He was a bodhisattva for who knows how many lifetimes before. Okay, previously. Because unfortunately, we don't see the past. We don't know what level we've achieved in the past lifetimes. So we don't know what kind of we can kind of have an idea of our foundation by seeing how much we really understand and realize of the Dharma, and we can see it in our cultivation as well. But the point is that it takes many lifetimes of cultivation. Even as a bodhisattva, it's not like, oh, you become a bodhisattva in this lifetime, and in the next lifetime we can become a Buddha. The bodhisattvas have been bodhisattvas for eons, kalpas. Okay, so it's not that easy. Okay, so you have to there's a lot of work to be done. All right. Okay, so let's see. All right, that's okay. Buddha. Okay, so basically what we want to do is, for us today, see, Arhat, the other difference is also, Arhat is basically, they are cultivating for themselves. Okay, so they are cultivating to achieve enlightenment for themselves. And they're not necessarily, going to try to help other people become, other sentient beings become enlightened. All right, so this was the practice in the old days. All right, so back in the days of Buddha, even though they did actually, the disciples, obviously, they went out and tried to spread, bring people to listen to Buddha, speak the Dharma. So you can say that's kind of like what we're doing today, kind of spread the Tao, spread the gospel. But for the most part, they're just cultivating for themselves, and maybe they don't perform too many external merits. Now today, it's a little bit different, and so the difference between the Arhat and the Bodhisattva is that basically back then it's more like in Buddhism they have like two different major branches, if you will. One is the Theravada, and then the other one is the Mahayana. So in the Theravada Buddhism, it's basically what they're cultivating to achieve is become an Arhat. Okay. Now the Mahayana is what we call the great vehicle, or the big boat. They say, whereas the Theravada is the little boat, but the big boat meaning that we can carry other people. So we ferry other people to also become enlightened. And so that's what a bodhisattva is. And so that's kind of like the major difference between those two. And so today we are in this white era, right? In this white era is the period of universal salvation. And so because the Tao is now available to everyone, as long as they have that, meet those conditions, 3 conditions, right? The affinity, that they make vows, and let's see, right? So that we can transmit the Tao to them. Now, so so we are basically doing the work of bodhisattvas. Okay, so that's why. So for us, you know, that's what we're looking at here is to become bodhisattvas, right? Okay. Oh, whoops, sorry. Skip through this. All right. So what is a bodhisattva, though? Okay, so the word is broken up into two parts, right? It says bodhi is awakened or enlightened, and then sattva is the definition is kind of sentient being. So basically, it's an awakened sentient being. Now, a sentient being is, you can say that, you know, as humans, or not just humans, there are other sentient beings, animals, you know, but we are kind of ignorant. I mean, we don't really know the truth, right? You know, even the truth, the Four Noble Truths that Buddha stated, right? The truth of suffering. Most people don't realize that. I mean, they just kind of assume that, you know, this is the normal way of things. This is the way life is, right? So they accept that as just that's the way it is. But but actually, you know, so we have to become awakened to what the truth is, and then we are if we want to, you know, get out of being a sentient being. A sentient being is subject to karma and reincarnation, right? The cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And so that's why, you know, that Four Noble Truths says, you know, that we're going to suffer as a result. Sentient beings, you know, will go through this constant cycle of suffering. And so we have to awaken, awaken from that, become enlightened. And so we have to know the truth, understand it, realize it, you know, to practice, so that we, you know, to cultivate so that we can get out of, so that we can know, so that we are no longer a sentient being. All right. Okay. So basically, it's one bodhisattva is someone who is enlightened, has transformed delusions and illusions into wisdom. Right. So our view, the sentient being's view of the world is from the Buddha's point of view, from the enlightened point of view, it's very it's illusory, or you can say it's self-delusion. Okay, and so we have the wrong view. Basically, we have the wrong view of the world, wrong view of ourselves, right? The wrong view of life, and so we have to understand what the true view is. Okay, and then they've, you know, inspired this bodhicitta, which is the mind of awakening, okay, that strives for Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings, right? So this is basically what a bodhisattva wants to do. Bodhisattva sees that because he's awakened, he sees that all sentient beings are equal, that we all have that, all sentient beings have that Buddha nature, okay? And so they can all, I mean, we say that they can all become Buddhas, but, you know, Buddha says that they are actually Buddhas that have not awakened yet, okay? So because they have that Buddha nature. The Buddha nature that is in all sentient beings is the same. I mean, it's not like the Bodhisattva or the Buddha, their Buddha nature is any greater or more than the Buddha nature that is in each of us. It's all the same. We can't really quantify that. I mean, it is, okay? It's just the same thing, okay? So there's no difference, really. So ultimately, you know, the difference is in how we view things, okay? And so this, again, you know, the path of the Bodhisattva is the path of the Mahayana, or the great vehicle of cultivation. So that's, again, something that we do now in the White Era. I mean, people, if we just, you know, take these teachings, these learnings, and we cultivate ourselves and we don't help others, we don't benefit other sentient beings, then, you know, what we can achieve is maybe becoming an arhat. That's it. Okay, we won't become a Buddha, right? Okay, so the Bodhisattvas, all right. Okay, so they have, the Bodhisattvas have this 4 immeasurable minds. Okay, so that's kind of characteristics of Bodhisattva or Buddha, and so they have the infinite loving kindness, right, to give love and happiness to others. They have the boundless compassion to save others from suffering or willing to suffer for others. So this is, that's why it's not like an arhat. An arhat may not necessarily feel that way. So the bodhisattva feels that, wow, they see the suffering in sentient beings and they feel, because of their compassion, right, their empathy, their compassion, that they feel the same suffering. They feel the suffering of the sentient beings, and so they want to alleviate that suffering. And then they have limitless happy joy to also rejoice in the welfare of others. Okay, so be happy for others when things are good for them, and have infinite equanimity and relinquishment. So be able to yield and to give up all for others. So the equanimity actually means it's kind of equal. So we have a sense of being equal. So the Bodhisattva or the Buddha does, again, what they're saying is that all sentient beings are the same as Buddha. And so they don't treat sentient beings any differently, okay, than as a Buddha, actually, right? Because as human beings, we kind of look at the forms, the external side, and we see the differences. That's what our two eyes, our senses, all sees differences. But of course, how we see with these eyes, etc., it's really all in our mind, how we perceive things, how we want to see things. Okay, but so we have to kind of try to see with a singular eye, right, the wisdom eye, to penetrate through all the differences. Okay, and to look at to view all sentient beings just like a Buddha would view them as being a Buddha. So because they all have that Buddha nature. Okay, so they all have that potential to become awakened, right? Okay, so yeah. All right, so having the four immeasurable minds, or you can say these are like four aspects of the mind. It's a precursor to achieving complete enlightenment and liberation. So basically all bodhisattvas, they'll have, this mindset. Okay. Now we may not, so that's why it says, boundless or limitless or infinite, right? We may have some of these, but it's not infinite. Okay. The capacity is not infinite. And so that's why it takes many, however many lifetimes it's going to take for us to reach that level. Okay, so, but as long as we have some of these, at some level of these, then we can become, then we are, on that path of bodhisattva, right? And then, of course, what goes along with these, having this type of mindset, is they also have the vows. So those four vows, I mentioned the Buddha's vows or the Bodhisattva vows, all Bodhisattvas, they have these vows in some way or another, in one form or another. Okay, so again, the four great vows, there are innumerable number of sentient beings, and they're willing to ferry all of them. Okay, afflictions are endless, and they vow to extinguish all of the afflictions. The Dharma teachings are infinite, right, but they vow to master all of them. And the perfect enlightenment is unsurpassed, but they vow to achieve it. Okay, so actually bodhisattvas, the bodhisattvas that we hear about, we know about, they actually already have mastered all the teachings. It's just the question of, a degree of cultivation. So, certain bodhisattvas, maybe they, for example, we know like Guanyin Bodhisattva, right, is sometimes known as the Buddha of mercy or Bodhisattva of mercy or compassion, right? So, he or she basically has cultivated, that aspect very well, probably better than other Buddhas, bodhisattvas. Okay, so there's still varying degrees of achievement, if you will, in each of those aspects. Okay, so let's see. All right, just an interesting thing in the sutras, the Buddha sutras. Some of them they will say, they will mention in the beginning of the sutra, they'll say, oh, there's so many bhiksus and bhiksunis in the audience. Okay, they always mention this number, 1,250, 1,250. Okay, the bhiksus and bhiksunis are basically, they're monks, okay, or male and female, okay, monks or cultivators in the audience. Okay, so it's interesting that they always mention this number. Now, obviously, it didn't mean that there were exactly this number of people, the monks there. Okay, because this is mentioned in the Platform Sutra of the Sixth Patriarch, and it's also mentioned in others of the Buddhist sutras. Okay, so this means something. Okay, so this is not just some number that they use, but there's a significance to this number, right? So basically, it's referring to, or one way to look at this number is, if you break it down, it's referring to the levels of enlightenment or attainment. Okay, so when we're talking about a bodhisattva, right, there are these 50 levels of achievement, if you will. Okay, 50 levels of bodhisattva. Well, it's actually a total of we'll see here, but there are these 50 levels which have 10 levels of faith, 10 levels of wisdom, 10 levels of conducts, 10 levels of dedication and merits, and 10 levels of insight. Okay, and then after they've accomplished those 50 levels, then there are two other levels, which are they achieve equal enlightenment and then wonderful enlightenment. Okay, I don't know, there's some translation of the words, but and then and then finally the last level. So actually the bodhisattvas, there are 52 levels of bodhisattva, okay, that a bodhisattva is at, and then the final level is Buddhahood. All right, so basically, you have 1, 2, 50, right? So that's 1, 2, 5, 0. Okay, so I don't know. This is one way to look at it. I don't know if this is really what the meaning is, but really what they're hinting at is, what they're saying is, these monks, right? The bhiksus and the bhiksunis, basically, they're on the path of Buddhahood. Okay, so and you can say it's a hint to kind of hinting at we need to cultivate, right? We have to take this path of Buddhahood towards Buddhahood, and we have to go through these 52 levels or 53 levels to reach Buddhahood. Okay, so that's kind of a little side thing. All right, there, interesting. Okay, now there are what we call great bodhisattvas or mahasattvas. Okay, so these are kind of well-known bodhisattvas. Now these mahasattvas, basically they reach the 47th level, okay, or above. Okay, so that they're considered a mahasattva. Okay, so a great bodhisattva or great being. Okay, so for example, these we know at least some of these, right? Avalokitesvara, which is Guanyin. Okay, Akasagarbha. Okay, Akasagarbha and Siddhigarbha. Siddhigarbha we're more familiar with, which is the Buddha in the underworld. Akasagarbha is kind of like considered his I don't know, it's like not the opposite, but it's like his brother, if you will. And then Mahastamapratpa. Okay, so it's hard to pronounce some of these. And these are not as well known. But then you have Maitreya, who we know. Okay, and then Manjushri, we also know. Okay, and then Samantabhadra. Okay, is actually these two. So Manjushri and Samantabhadra, they are like when you see sometimes you see depictions of the Buddha. The Buddha has two bodhisattvas, one on either side of him, and that's the Manjushri is on his left and Samantabhadra on his right. So Manjushri bodhisattva represents or is the guardian of wisdom, right? And Samantabhadra is the guardian of the law or the truth, the principles, right? The Dharma. Okay, And then that last one, I'm not even going to try to pronounce. but anyways, these are kind of the more, I guess, the well-known bodhisattvas. But there are many others. Who knows? There are countless others. Buddha himself says that there are just countless numbers of Buddhas and bodhisattvas. Okay, in the whole, I don't know, you can say the universe. We just don't know about them. All right. But anyways, this is, yeah, just kind of what you know. So these are, but actually, these. So some of the, at least for some of them that we know about, like Guanyin Avalokitesvara, they're actually now a Buddha. They've achieved the Buddha level, okay, and also Siddhigarbha has also achieved the Buddha level, okay. So and then we don't know about the others because we only find out through kind of these channeling, right? In the Tao, we have the channeling where we can find out about that, right? So, but anyway, so yeah, who knows? These bodhisattvas have been bodhisattvas for eons, for kalpas, and so it sounds kind of daunting. It's like, wow, it takes such a long time, but our focus should be on this life right now. What can we do? As basically, we can still perform, do the things of a bodhisattva, be a bodhisattva for at least this lifetime, okay? And then that will be a start. And in each lifetime, if we continue, I hope we do continue, that it hopefully will have improved, and kind of go up a level each time. All right. Yeah, it does takes time. All right. So bodhisattvas, they all basically practice the 6 paramitas. Okay, the 6 paramitas, they help us to give up our selfish desires and dedicate or sacrifice ourselves for the awakening of sentient beings. It also helps to kind of it's part of, well, all cultivation is part of refining ourselves. Okay, refining our character, and so. So these kind of 4, I mean these 6, basically, it's like the 6. These are like 6 different aspects. Okay, so it's not like you do them in sequence, in order. Okay, it's like you do all. All right. So charity or giving is the first paramita. By the way, paramita means perfection. Okay, or basically, you can say it's reaching the other shore, the shore of enlightenment. So that's why these paramitas, it's called 6 paramitas, that when we can perfect these 6, you can say practices, that then we can reach the shore of enlightenment. All right. So the first one, charity and giving. Okay. The second one is precepts, or you can say this is kind of more the external discipline side of things. The third one is forbearance, which is, okay, so that's also internal, external. And then diligence, right? The effort, vigorous effort, concentration, samadhi. Okay, so this is, we'll be talking in detail, a little bit more detail about each one of these. And then wisdom is prajna. Okay, so it's like when we practice these, we really should be doing all of them. Like we always need to have wisdom, and we really always should have the concentration and also the diligence. And I mean, I don't know. We basically need to do all of them. Okay, all of them at once. Okay, so again, this is to help us to achieve perfection and transcendence, right? And so there are other things. Cultivation isn't just, you can say it's not completely just this per se. I mean, there are other ways of talking about cultivation, different aspects. Like there's something called the 4 subjects of cultivation, which talks about our moral character, our virtues and merits, tolerance and forbearance. So that's one of them, and then proprieties. Okay, so this kind of overlaps. All these things kind of overlap a bit. So and then there's also a little bit of overlap between these 6, some of these 6 as well. Okay, all right. So but before we talk about those, it's important to talk about some basic fundamental concept, I guess, or principles of cultivation. All right, so one is that we are borrowing the false to cultivate the true. Okay, so we say that a lot in Chinese. They say 借假修真. Okay, so one thing we have to realize is that all phenomena is false. Okay, according to this, right? So including our body, this body that we have. Therefore, we have to use this because we are in this world, right? Earlier I did say that to become a Buddha, we have to be a human being. So being a human being means being in this, we can say it's a false environment. This phenomenal world, it's false. Okay, it's not true. Okay, it's not the true reality, if you will. Okay, so we have to borrow, of course, we use our body and we are interacting with this, with the world, this environment, okay, this around us. But while we're doing that, I mean, unfortunately we have to do that, but we don't want to abide in or become attached to these false forms, okay, of even our body. Okay, so it's not to say that, not being attached doesn't mean that, we disregard it or say that it's not important. No, it's important. I mean, these are like tools, okay? We have to use these tools, and we have to treat it as such. So we should not disregard that, but it just means that we should not become, attached. Just not willing to give up. In other words, attached means we're not willing to give up. So we have to be able to give it up when the time is when it's time to give them up. Okay, so the true and the false are two halves of the whole, though. Okay, so basically, when we say there's the truth and the false, just like within us, each of us, we have the false body. We say the false body, but we have the true self, that Buddha nature. Okay, and that is our true self. So these two combine to be what we are. Okay, now, so and you can't have one without the other. Obviously, the body by itself is useless. It's just a corpse. It's dead. Okay, it needs the Buddha nature. But then the Buddha nature, unless there is a body, we can't cultivate. So these two go together, and so you need both. And actually, when they're both together, it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Okay, so so it's not like you have the Buddha nature and then you have the body, but because the body by itself, even though it's like a tool, but it doesn't do anything by itself, and then you need the Buddha nature to kind of use it. And so, but the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And Buddha, and the other thing is, the Buddha and a sentient being, they are one. Okay, so they are. There is no difference. I mean, the only difference. Excuse me. The only difference is, you can say their point of view, okay, perspective on things, and then so we say that's a Buddha is awakened. So that's the only difference between sentient being and Buddha, is that a Buddha is awakened. So a sentient being has not awakened yet, because what they have is the same. They have the same Buddha nature, right? Okay. All right. Yeah. Now, okay, so I said that it's more than just like two halves together. Okay, so it's like when you have, I mean, so one way you can say, okay, so it's like two sides of the same coin, right? But when you flip a coin, it's going to land on either the head or the tail side. So that's one or the other. So, but it's not like, that's not what we. I mean, if we view things that way, then we're still in this duality, and we're still a sentient being. Okay, so it's like maybe you want to flip the coin, and it lands on the edge. Okay, so but anyways, all right. So another important concept or principle in cultivation is, you can say it's like this effortless action. Okay, so so Wu Wei, right? This effortless and motiveless action. Okay, so this there's what we do is, why is it called effortless? Is because we don't have to think about it. Okay, there's no intention. It comes directly from our Buddha nature that this is, you just do it. Okay, so now, this is obviously, this is a principle that's talked about a lot in Taoism, right? Lao Tzu. But it's the same thing in Buddhism, right? So there's also, something we call the Sui Yan, which is the flow. You can say it's flowing with the affinity. Okay, so it's basically you're not forcing anything, and so this is kind of these two, Wu Wei and the Sui Yan. They are two aspects of the same. Basically, they are the one that combined. They are one. Okay, so it's like one is internal, one is external. The Wu Wei comes from the internal. The Sui Yan is on the external side when we're dealing with things. You cannot be Sui Yan without Wu Wei, right? And if you have Wu Wei, you naturally will Sui Yan. Okay, so basically you will naturally. So if we have that without that intention, if it's coming from Buddha nature, it's naturally to go with the affinity. All right. So this is a very important concept in cultivation that we should always keep in mind, that we follow. No matter how, all the other ones are kind of methods, okay, like the 6 paramitas. They're talking about methods, specific methods, specific practices. But this is something that's underlying that, the fundamental part that we always have to do no matter what, okay, in all the practices, okay. And it's just basically it's like saying the same thing as, letting go of all karmic affinities, not giving rise to a thought. Okay, that's what in Buddhism they say this. But that is really the same thing as saying this Wu Wei and Sui Yan. Okay, so that's really what it is. All right. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the 6 paramitas. The first being charity or giving. Okay, so charity. Charity. Actually, giving is probably a little bit more. The broader term that is probably a little bit more appropriate. Basically, through giving, we can overcome miserly and selfish tendencies. Okay, so as human beings, we tend to be we have certain degree of selfishness. Okay, so like the things that we have, we are reluctant to part with. Okay, we don't want to give it away, and so basically, what this allows us to do by practicing the giving. Okay, so initially maybe we feels like we're forcing ourselves to give. Okay, to do this. Initially, that may be true. So that would not be Wu Wei. Okay, so that would be it's a forcing. Okay, so it's not Sui Yan. But in order to overcome these tendencies that we already have, we may have to do that until we can turn our basically change our perspective, change our mindset, so that it then becomes natural. Okay, so then it does become Wu Wei. Okay, but giving can be different types of giving, right? So material giving, whether it's money, donations, or material things, or the Dharma, speaking, trying to teach people, guide people, guide others to the truth. Time and effort that we put in. Okay, so these are kind of the 3 types of giving, and also courage. You can say, this can be kind of fall into like the Dharma. Basically, it's kind of giving people courage. Okay, so especially, or like when people are in a bad situation, and we give them encouragement, for example. Okay, so that's the type. So, but that you can say that's kind of like the Dharma type of giving too. It's related to that. But so these are the different. So giving can be all sorts of things, and it can be just smiling. Okay, so you see people, you give them a smile. That's also making them feel good. Okay, I mean, or you know, these are all little, I mean, aspects of giving, right, that we can do. The other aspect also is to practice relinquishment, which means to give up, to let go of things. Okay, so it's not just giving things, but then it's to let go. You know, you can say that one true test or one true measure of this is whether we are willing to give up the thing that we cherish the most. Are we willing to give up our most valuable thing to someone? Okay, so that would be the real test, right? But okay, so okay, so what's listed here is like giving up the things that we really should not have. Okay, okay, so like pursuit of sensual pleasures, whether that includes, you know, food and drink, things, and enjoying ourselves, you know, being able to kind of let go of those things, right? The pursuit of wealth and fame, right? Unfortunately, in this society, of course, we're taught to pursue these things. Okay, so we're bombarded every day with things to kind of encourage us to go after these things. But that's really something that's kind of, so that's why we're going against the stream. Okay, going up against the flow of society. So we have to kind of try to give up, not pursue those things. And of course, we have to get rid of our, you know, let go of our sinful deeds, you know, vices, bad habits, things like that, bad temperament. And then also not contend or vie with others, you know. So, I mean, it's okay, I guess, to have some kind of a competitive spirit, but it's like we should be competing against ourselves. Okay, so in other words, always trying to improve ourselves rather than trying to compete with others and say, oh yeah, you know, that person, he's performing so many merits, I want to perform more. I mean, it's okay to push ourselves, you know, use that to push ourselves as a motivation, if you will, but we shouldn't get into such a, you know, people get too competitive and then they start, you know, that goes down the wrong path. Okay, so okay, so in the Dharma class, right, we take those two vows in the beginning, right? The first one is to emphasize the holy matters over the mundane matters. So that's, you can say that falls into this category of giving up. You can say some of the mundane for the holy, okay? And then the second one is more directly related to this because it's the giving, okay? So the two ways of making contributions through the material or the Dharma contribution. Okay, so this kind of encompasses those. So you'll find out that the vows that we make are kind of all related to all these aspects of cultivation. All right. Okay. So that's the kind of the giving aspect. Again, so you can say it's kind of the external side, which is kind of giving stuff to others, and then the internal side is to give up, to relinquish certain things. Okay, ultimately we have to give up this false self, right? This also our ego, right? Get rid of our ego. That is the you can say it's like the ego is kind of like this dictator in our mind, and we have to get rid of him. Okay, so and so so that those yeah, so the internal and external giving. Okay, right, so happiness is not having a lot, happiness is giving a lot. Okay, so the more we give, the more happy we are, actually. You know, when basically like when I moved back from California to New York, you know, I had a house, I had furniture, I had all sorts of stuff, and then, you know, so I had to get rid of everything before I came back, to move back. Right? The only thing I brought back with me is clothes and, I don't know, I think my computer, that's it. And so I had to get rid of everything. But, you know, it felt good, actually. It felt good once I got rid of everything, because it was no longer a burden. It felt like, you know, when I had the stuff, I was like, I had worried about what am I going to do, you know, with all the stuff. And, you know, once you get rid of it, and it feels good. Okay, so the giving is good. Okay. Okay, so the next is talking about the precepts. Okay, so these here, this plaque or whatever these are the 5 precepts, right, that we observe. Refrain from killing, refrain from stealing, basically, refrain from committing sexual misconduct, don't tell lies or have false speech, and then refrain from taking any intoxicants or drugs, alcohol, that kind of stuff. All right. So precepts, discipline. This is basically kind of the discipline. You can say it's kind of, well, there's both external, internal disciplines. It can overcome, greed, or greedy, negligent, disorderly, immoral, and excessive tendencies that as humans we may have. So some of these, like so it's both internal and external. So the discipline is to let go of the attachments and delusions. So we have to view things as, this is all delusional, or it's illusional, it's all illusion, and so we need to let it go. So basically, there are 3 basic precepts. We don't do harmful deeds, don't harm anyone, whether it's by word or by action, right? We want to cultivate our virtues and benefit sentient beings. Basically, the idea of the precepts is to subdue those 6 roots. The 6 roots are the roots of the 6 senses, right? So our sense of sight, sense of hearing, sense of smell, sense of taste, sense of touch, and also the sense of our conscious mind. So those 6, because those are the ones that are basically, they're the ones that cause us to have desires, things like that, and to pursue these things that, things that may be immoral, or we have excessive tendencies, or like greedy. So greedy doesn't can mean a lot of things, and whether it's for money or it's for material things or even for food, taste, right? Anything that's satisfying our senses, and so if we want too much of it, that's greedy. So these what the precepts, and so the precepts also include like all the rules and regulations of the temple, besides the precepts that like the 5 precepts, things like that. So all those things, basically, this is one of the, so precepts is very important. It's to have discipline, right? We can't have, just, some people, they think that, we don't need discipline, right? So they don't, when they come to the temple, they don't need to follow the rules and procedures. Then you have chaos. So it's like a free-for-all. Anyone does whatever they want. But that's obviously not the way of the Tao. The Tao, there is an order to it. There are principles that we follow. So this is kind of to overcome, to instill that sense of discipline within us. And basically, you can say that, like this is also, well, in the 10 Great Vows, right? Where it says we have to follow the rules and regulations of the temple, and also you could say the Dharma class, the vegetarian vow, is kind of partly falls into this too. The vegetarian vow, where we can refrain from eating things that maybe we like to eat, that we originally like to eat, but things like that. So, all right. So that's kind of the discipline or the precept aspect. So the next one we're talking about is forbearance. So forbearance is basically, it's kind of, you can say it's tolerance. It's being, so basically, so what it is here, it says it overcomes intolerance and impatience. So, we tend to be, sometimes, I don't know, you can say what we can accept is limited. So our ability to accept is kind of very limited. and that's based on our, our biases, our prejudices, our preconceptions, things like that, our false views, that we're not necessarily willing to accept everything. But this is kind of this one is a very tough one, in that we have to be able to accept, endure, okay, hardships, endure things that we may not necessarily like or want, okay, and so there's restraint. We have to restrain ourselves in that we don't become, get angry. So we have, and also we have to basically practice to persevere, okay, through all this, these hardships. Just like basically, you have all the Buddhas and saints, the patriarchs. They practice all of these. Okay, so like for example, the sixth patriarch, he had to endure I don't know how many years, like 14 years of being in the woods with a number of hunters, and because it wasn't time for him to be to go back out to society to teach the Dharma. And he had to endure that. So that was part of the practice. Okay, so he needed to practice, work on this forbearance aspect. Okay, so basically the practice, okay, to accept unfavorable situations, including being taken advantage of, right? There's something that we say that we should, be able to accept being taken advantage of. I mean, this is not to say that we want to put ourselves into those situations, okay? So, but if the situation comes up and we can't avoid it, then we accept it, okay? So, of course, it's always best if we can avoid it, but sometimes we can't avoid it. Maybe it's a test, okay? So we have to be able to face it with forbearance and tolerance, okay? To accept verbal abuse and slander. A lot of the patriarchs, are endured those, like the matriarch, okay, or others during that time. They had to. There was a lot of slander against them and against the Tao, but they had to put up with it. Okay, so even Jesus or all the Buddhists, that same thing. Okay, we have to change our mindset, turn anger or hatred into gratitude and appreciation, really. That is something that, that's really what this is all about. So we have to be able to become selfless. So get rid of that, because why we can't tolerate it is because we have this ego, okay? So the ego, ultimately, it's, so that's one of the 4 marks, okay? That is that ego, the self, that false self, okay? So we have to kind of get rid of that. And you can say that, all these practices, the cultivation is to help us get rid of the 4 marks and also the 3 minds, the past, present, future, okay? So those things. But anyways, so tolerance, so this is really about, having tolerance, having patience. You can say maybe having compassion as well, mercy, loving kindness, abnegation or selflessness, and temperance. Okay, so temper ourselves to be able to accept these conditions that are not so good to us, right? So by getting rid of that self, so this is kind of like helping to kind of get rid of that ego. When we don't have that ego, then this is not a problem. This no longer becomes a problem, an issue. All right. Okay, so this is the other aspect. Now, okay, so work is doing it. That's discipline is doing it every day. Okay, diligence is what we're talking about next, right? Diligence is putting in that effort, putting in true effort, right? So vigorous effort. Basically, it's vigorous effort and positive energy with unwavering resolve. Okay, so that's a lot there. I mean, it's basically not just do we put in the effort, but we are determined to complete, let's say, to fulfill the duty or the task at hand. All right, and so what it can overcome is inertia. It's kind of laziness, lack of will, that type of thing. That unfortunately, that's also very human. It's like, in the morning, it's like, so early. Why do I have to get up? You know, so this is, we need to kind of force ourselves, to push ourselves. Again, that's initially all of these, you know, because we think it's unnatural. It's not unnatural. It's basically, it's not, this is different from what we're used to. Let's put it that way. Because what we're used to is, you can say it's kind of the wrong way. And so to kind of change ourselves to the right way, we have to kind of force ourselves initially. So initially, yes, there is the yo way, so it's not the u way, but gradually we want to change that from yo way into u way, so where it becomes natural. Okay, so this becomes the new normal, if you will. Okay, so right now our normal is not right. It's kind of the opposite of what these things are talking about, and so we have to change our normal to be this way. Okay. And so the practice, right, we can't make excuses, all right? So that's one thing. We should not be making an excuse when, oh, you know, it's like, you know, I don't feel well. I feel tired. I don't want to do it. You know, these are all excuses. I mean, we can always push ourselves. We can always do it. Just, you know, finding a way even when there seems to be no way. Okay, so sometimes, you know, we're just in this, we're stuck and we can't seem to get past that, but you know, we have to figure out how to get past it. And sometimes it's just, you know, it shouldn't involve any thinking. We should just do it, you know, just do it and then just plod along. And you know, surprisingly, we may find out that, hey, we've done it. Okay, we completed it. So it's just having that resolve, that will to just do it. Okay, don't think about. Sometimes it is daunting to think about, oh, the objective or how we're going to fulfill something. We just if we think that, then yeah, that becomes an obstacle for us to completing what we're supposed to do. And so just like saying, well, you know, to become a Buddha, wow, it takes so many lifetimes of hard work. You know, that's like, wow, you know, don't even want to start. But so we shouldn't think of that. We just say, well, take it step by step, right? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. So we just do it step by step, and don't worry about the future. That's again, you know, there's the three minds again. don't have the three minds. You know, just focus on the now, on this moment. What do I need to do? Okay, what should I do? Right, and then always just do it to the best of our ability. Okay, so always doing things. You know, a lot of people, maybe they're assigned a task, and you know, it's not something that they want to do or they enjoy doing, and you know, so it's kind of like they feel like and they don't really put their heart into it, and so they don't do a good job. But you know, we should always do a good job no matter what. All right, even, you know, no matter how small the task or how great the task, we should always do it. Do it to the best of our ability. Okay. And also, this is I would say that this diligence is also kind of like having a sense of duty, right? That there are things that, you know, a lot sometimes, you know, I see this too. It's like, well, you know, people don't realize that there are things to do, and they don't do it. So, or they just ignore it. And but we have to have a sense of duties, that everything is my duty. Okay, everything is, you know, if other people are not doing it, then I need to do it. Okay, so that is the sense of duty. Okay. So, and then this is yeah, okay. And then so the next is concentration. Okay, concentration. Basically, right. Besides putting in our best effort, is to kind of like wholeheartedly, you know, to focus on that. Okay, what we're doing. Okay, now this, of course, this is also the concentration is also kind of, you can say, is also internal mental self-control as well. Okay, so basically we can overcome our anger, our lack of clarity, external influences, confusion, and disorderly tendencies. Okay, so we have to focus. You could say focus, you know, is a good word. To focus, to concentrate, because a lot of times, you know, we're trying to focus on something, but then we constantly have these distractions, either external or internal, right? A lot of times we have external distractions. Sometimes it's difficult I mean, we have to deal with those. But the internal ones, our mind, we start thinking about other things. And so they distract us. And so concentration is dealing with that. In the practice, so we have to let go of all forms and attachments. Okay, so we have to be able to let go of these things, all things. So the more we can let go of, the fewer distractions we will have. Right? It becomes a distraction because we, sometimes, we can't let go of it, and so when it pops up, that we feel like we are attracted to it, and we have to deal with it. Okay. We also, this is to stop our absurd or irrational or wishful thinking. Okay, so sometimes we, in our mind, we have these thoughts that they're not realistic. Let's put it that way. Okay, or this fantasy. So we should this will help try to get rid of those and eliminate any kind of confusion we have in our mind. Okay, so this is concentration is also, samadhi is kind of reached the state of stillness, calmness in our mind. Okay, quiescence. Basically, the more quiet our mind is, the more still our mind is, the closer it is to that Bodhi mind. Okay, this is also one of the 3 non-outflow studies. Okay, the non-outflow studies address the 3 poisons, right? Greed, anger, and ignorance. Okay, so this addresses the anger portion. Although you can say forbearance is also, yeah, I mean, so there is some overlap in here, but okay, so whereas some because all right, so okay, so throughout all these, in all this cultivation, of course, it's really, what are we doing? We're not being heroes to conquer other people. We're conquering ourselves. Okay, so that's what the purpose of cultivation is all about, is to conquer ourselves, because we're like this wild I don't know, this wild animal that we need to conquer it. Okay, so that, especially that ego and in our senses, our attachment to our senses. Okay, so we have to get over that. Okay, so wisdom, we definitely need wisdom. Wisdom overcomes, this is the innate, the wisdom that's coming from our Buddha nature. Okay, so it's not like common sense wisdom, that everyone has. This wisdom it's more profound. Okay, so but having this wisdom can overcome our ignorance. Okay, so I mean, we may not think that we're ignorant, but from the Buddha's point of view, we are ignorant. Okay, so because we don't know the truth, and we think what we know as the truth is not the truth. Okay, so, and also it overcomes any kind of foolish tendencies that we may have. It gives us this profound insight into things. Okay, having profound insight. Okay, so practice, to overcome our ignorance, to comprehend the truth and the Dharma. For example, again, mentioned the 3 minds, the past, present, and future, right? To be able to, we need to let go of those attachments to the time, right? And also the 4 marks, the self, right? The self, the sentient being, other sentient beings, and the life. Okay, so these are, if we can kind of let go or see through these things, right? These is basically, you can say, yeah, so then, we are getting closer to the truth, and that will help us to change our mindset, to overcome these obstacles, and have a change of this mindset into becoming awakened like a Buddha. Okay, so the other thing is, wisdom is very important today. We have to differentiate the true from the false. Okay, so we're being sold on all sorts of things that say, oh, this is, you need this, you need that. These are all false things. Or there's the other thing is, okay, so we usually, sometimes we use the scriptures, the teachings, right? Of course, the Dharma from what Buddha spoke, that's been laid down in the sutras, and that we all accept as true. But now, because we also have this this channeling, right? There's also the Buddha's channeling and giving us teachings, but we have to be careful too in being able to distinguish what's true, what's a proper true principle, and what is not. Okay, because right now we are also being tested to actually, this is the period of testing our wisdom. Okay, that we're in. So there will be tests, and there will be things that that would be presented to us that in a way that we might accept as being true, but it may not be. So we have to be careful. That's why it's very important to have some understanding, have some knowledge, at least an understanding of what the true principles are, so that when we encounter these things that are false views and false principles, that we'll recognize it, and we can then not follow those. Okay. The wisdom also help us to speak and act appropriately, so that we don't do foolish things, create more karma, right? For example. So this is the third of the ignorance is the third of the three poisons. The three poisons is something important that we have to get rid of, because those are the root of hell, basically, or reincarnation, anyways. Okay. So let's see. All right, so those are kind of the 6 paramitas. I mean, if you want to, you can go into a lot more detail about each of the 6. But this is kind of the overview of how of the practices of the 6. Okay, so and what they are for. What they are addressing. Okay, so conclusion. All right, so practicing the 6 paramitas to get rid of the 3 poisons, right, and also our ego, and basically the 4 marks and the 3 minds. Okay, so this is again all bodhisattvas. If we want to become a Buddha, we have to practice all of these. Okay, we borrow the false forms to cultivate the true self and to help liberate all sentient beings. Okay, so again, to become a Buddha, we have to become we have to be in this human world. To cultivate, to be able to achieve that. And while we're doing that, hopefully we have the 4 immeasurable minds of a bodhisattva, and hopefully eventually we make those kind of 4 vows generally, or to help other sentient beings, to help all sentient beings, to liberate them from the suffering. Okay. The Bodhisattva Way ultimately leads to Buddhahood and Nirvana, right? And is the way of the white era cultivator. So we are in this period of universal salvation where we can cultivate, and we can actually cultivate as a bodhisattva, because all sentient beings need help, need our guidance, okay, to become awakened. Okay, so sentient being is, so I would say, perception is everything. Let me see. I think I missed something here. Okay. Perception is everything. Sentient beings is an unawakened Buddha. Okay, so you can say that that's kind of like the cup is half empty view of things. Okay, so that's what a sentient being is. They haven't awakened. But a bodhisattva is an awakened sentient being, and you can say that maybe their view is, their perspective is that the cup is half full. And a Buddha is a fully enlightened sentient being, so their cup is full. Okay, so basically, we are in the different stage of, we are in this, hopefully we're going from being a sentient being to a bodhisattva. Okay, so it all really depends on our perspective, how we want to view things. If we want to view things as half empty, then we're going to be stuck in this cycle of life and death and suffering. So we have to take the other view and take the path of the bodhisattva in order to ultimately arrive at Buddhahood, becoming a Buddha. Okay. So to achieve Buddhahood, it is our duty as bodhisattvas to awaken other sentient beings, all sentient beings. All right. So we don't want to leave any of our fellow brothers and sisters behind, right? We want to help them also achieve enlightenment and to transcend this cycle of suffering. Okay. So basically, you know, what we think we become, right? Okay, so if we want to become a Buddha, a Bodhisattva, then we can. And so it all starts in our mind. We have the proper mindset. Okay, so and of course, you know, we have to put in the efforts to achieve it, right? Okay, so so there's a song, Bodhisattva's Heart, my holy teacher. Says, to all brothers diligently calling, awakened ones, God's children you're leading. How many years of hardships enduring? Okay, through difficulties refining an ideal world, earnestly creating. Countless others vigorously enlightening. The blood, sweat, and tears never forgetting. White cloud gives you its blessing. Cultivator's heart, resolute as the pine, as clear as jade in the cold of winter, persevering while working together. A blessed world for sentient beings creating. Cultivator's heart like Bodhisattva's heart. Life carries on with hope everlasting, self-inspiring, others enlightening, unknown yet standing firm, burdens shouldering. Okay, so as a Bodhisattva, you know, we are trying to awaken all of, that's what I say, all brothers and sisters. We're all God's children. We all come from Lamu. Okay, so we are all the same, right? We're all there. Everyone has all sentient beings have the Buddha nature. Okay, so you know, but we have to endure a lot of hardships and difficulties through, you know, to practice through these practices and encountering a lot of difficulties and overcoming, basically conquering ourselves in the process of helping others. And so hopefully we can create that ideal world, right? Maitreya Buddha's vow is to create a paradise, you can say a pure land on earth. Okay, so this is part of that process. We are part of that process, right? So we have to be resolute, very determined in our path to become a Buddha, right? And you know, carrying out this mission, right, during this white era. So as we persevere and we work together, we can achieve that, create this blessed world. Okay, so. And we, you know, as we inspire ourselves and we help others become enlightened, we don't seek recognition, right? So there are many, you know, thousands, I don't know how many, they're cultivators today, Tao cultivators, and they're tirelessly working towards this goal. And these are all bodhisattvas. Everyone is, you know, but, you know, we may not know who they are, but yet, you know, we're willing to take on this mission to shoulder this burden. Okay. Okay. So I wish everybody success in cultivation and fulfilling the mission of a bodhisattva. Right. Each morning we are born again. What we do today is what matters the most. So it's not, you know, forget about the past. You know, today, right now, is where we can decide what we're going to do. Okay. So every day, you know, you can say that God is so merciful, giving us every day to start fresh. Okay, start anew. Okay, so don't waste these opportunities. How many more days do we have to be able to cultivate? We don't know, right? So every day is precious. So we should, you know, seize the moment, seize the day, right? Seize the moment, and do what is important. Do what we need to do. Okay, so if I had said anything, okay, so yeah, so if I had said anything wrong, I asked the Buddhas for forgiveness, and also asked transmitting masters and lecturers for their corrections. Thank you.